The protest was not directed against the judiciary to begin with. The protest was directed against the executive decision of the federal government to prosecute Nnamdi Kanu. Protest is a communicative measure taken by citizens in a democracy to express their discontent to their government. If you lose the right of protest to your government, peaceful protest, then what is the essence of democracy? I won 3 victories from Nnamdi Kanu. One before the Abia State High Court, one before the Federal High Court in Romania, and one before the Enugu State High Court. The Southeast will continue to struggle politically. Unfortunately, we are politically disadvantaged in this country since the end of the war. So IPOB numbers in the millions of members and followers and sympathizers. So for any discussion of how to move Southeast forward, I think there has to be a consideration that they be brought to the table. And how best can you bring him to the table than bringing their leader, Nnamdi Kanu? P2B has publicly called for a halt to the prosecution of Nnamdi Kanu. So why do they keep looking for him? The buck stops at President Tinubu's table. If he does not free Nnamdi Kanu, he can forget the votes of people of Southeast. Unless there's another plan. You're not going to win Southeast without freeing Nnamdi Kanu.
Okay, let's start with you are spending 2 nights at the correctional facility in Kuje.
Yeah.
What was the experience like?
The experience was traumatic. Anybody that tells you otherwise is in denial. It actually didn't start at Kuje. Kuje is the second phase in the whole saga. It started at Abattoir, the notorious detention facility at the SARS off Gusape, that area. That's where it started on Monday, the other Monday, 20th. So it was more traumatic at the police cell than it was at Kuje. So going to Kuje was more of graduating from a very terrible situation to something a bit less terrible. At the SARS detention facility in Abuja, overnight we were cramped into a 14 by 12 room. All of us, all 13 detainees, myself, President Bola Tinubu, and the others, were cramped in that room. It has only one toilet, and it has like 3 or 4 steps that are supposed to double for bed. There's nothing there, so you just have to lay down. So he didn't, contain all of us in terms of lying down. So most of us had to sit it out the whole night, and that most of us, included me particularly, I couldn't find myself lying on that, hard concrete floor overnight. So I just sat it out, almost in a fetal position like this, and it was quite traumatic. About 7:30 in the morning, the following day, they came for us. And of course, we didn't have telephone privileges, so nobody knew where we were. We were taken initially to the police CID headquarters in Gariki, and they led people to believe that's where we were. So somewhere along the line, in the late of the night, when it was about 7:30 in the evening, they just ordered us out. Came out, they deployed tear gas against us. It was very perplexing and baffling. I don't know why we would deploy tear gas against people you already have in custody at the force headquarters. And one of them was deployed very close to me. So the entire fume in great volumes, got inhaled into my lungs, and I lost my voice. I'm still trying to get my voice back. That was the second one that was deployed at me personally. The first one was at the point of arrest or interdiction. So all of that got taken in, and I think I'm struggling with some kind of respiratory issues right now. I just came from my doctor, and that's the diagnosis. You can see the cast where they, access my veins to do some intravenous treatment. So that's how it happened. And they took us from Abattoir, that is the SARS, early in the morning, around 7:30, and drove us all the way to Kuje, and nobody told us where we were going. We were all perplexed and confused, and we had no way of informing our people where we were. And they were looking for us all over Abuja until we got to Kuje. So you begin to wonder, while you get arrested in Wuse and Otako and get taken to Kuje, magistrate for arraignment the following day, when we have about 20 or maybe 15 magistrate courts closer to the location of arrest. So your guess is as good as mine. So when we got there, the magistrate wouldn't let us say any word. I told the magistrate, I'm a lawyer. He said, well, I know who you are. There was another lawyer amongst us, one barrister, Okere. He wouldn't let him speak. He said, well, you will not address me as lawyers because you are not dressed. We said, okay, we are suspects. Can we take a plea and apply for bail? He said, well, somebody got up and said, one lady lawyer got up and said, their counsel is on the way. Maybe your Lord, my Lord, whatever, your worship, can we take a stand down for 20 minutes? Their counsel, Barrister Aloy is on the way. He just shook his head and got angry. I don't know what made him angry, whether it was contrived or real. He just ordered us remanded till Friday to Kuje Correctional Facility. That's what happened. Very baffling. So we were headed away from the courtroom. We were all confused. That's how the justice system got so dispensed, so unjustly and so quickly, that a suspect, a defendant, no more had any right to take a plea. That's a basic right you have when you are produced in court. Tell me what I did so I can answer guilty or not guilty. Guilty, you are sentenced. It ends. Not guilty, then you apply for bail. Either your bail application is denied or is granted, but not giving you or affording you the opportunity to take that plea is the most egregious assault at the constitutional requirement of fair hearing.
All right. One is tempted to ask, why were you arrested and where were you arrested?
They said we disobeyed order of a public officer. By interpretation, it meant there was some court order against the protest that we ostensibly or allegedly disobeyed. The order was never served. You know, before the protest, the initiator of the protest was Omoyele Sowore. I supported the protest as a Nigerian, as an upstanding Nigerian, as an Igbo man, as somebody who believes in justice. I supported it openly. Okay, I went around with Sowore to drum up support for the protest. It was supposed to be peaceful protest. And we did apply to the police, and it was approved. They went to court to get a court order to stop the protest in its tracks. The judge refused. They pressured, so the judge gave a limited order that the protest could go on. But the judge created a perimeter beyond which the protest cannot go. And it was named, in particular, Shehu Shagari Way, the three-arm zone that includes the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, and the Aso Rock and National Assembly. That was all. I was arrested behind Transcorp Hilton Hotel along with others. Sowore was with me. I don't know how he managed to escape in that whole billow of smoke, of tear gas and all that. I think there was a vehicle that was passing by. He managed to jump into the vehicle. The driver opened the door and he jumped in, something like that. Otherwise, he would have been arrested on the spot. I was with him shoulder to shoulder. So we were around the intersection of Ahmad Bello and Adetugumba Ademola in Wuse. He fell outside the perimeter that the court ordered that you shouldn't go. Right around where you turn onto a small street to go into the EFCC, and those two hotels that have the same name on the left, that was where we were. I was there. My vehicle was parked. My driver was inside. I came out, and I was calling Sowore on the phone. He asked me, where are you? I told him where I was. So he came. The moment he got there, we got together. A small crowd formed around us. People that came with him, and others, and so on and so forth. And we just started shouting, yelling, sloganeering peacefully. Free Nnamdi Kanu, free Nnamdi Kanu, free Nnamdi Kanu. I think maybe they had a scout somewhere around there. There was no police inside. There was no police cordon. There was no police contingent anywhere around. But apparently they had a scout. So the scout went all the way to the Hilton, Transport Hilton and Jerry Ghana Junction where they were, and told them that these people are over there yelling the slogan of protest. So they deployed from that side and started pursuing us. They came to us, we didn't go to them. We were way outside the perimeter, 2 kilometers away from the perimeter, beyond which the court order said we shouldn't go. So they brought their violence to us. It was a violent arrest, interdiction, forceful, even though the protesters were under their control because they had so many vehicles and so many well-armed police officers. I don't know what they were doing with loaded weapons, and almost each one of them was carrying canisters of tear gas, and they were shooting this thing indiscriminately to the point that it affected some of them. One of the officers was yelling, "Take it easy, take it easy." But the ones that had gone mad with impunity and draconism would not listen. They kept shooting and shoving people around and so on and so forth.
Looking at even the perimeter restriction of the court, is it an infringement on your fundamental rights, given the fact that protest is constitutionally guaranteed?
Yes.
So even as the court was limiting it, was it a breach on your own fundamental right?
Now, that order issued from an ex parte application. An ex parte application implies that there's a bigger case coming. So we're going to court and we're going to join issues with them in a substantive setting, in an adversarial setting, where they make their case, we make ours. Then the point that you just made will come in. Since when did Nigerians lose their constitutional right to peaceably assemble, their constitutional right to protest and to free speech? Protest is a communicative measure taken by citizens in a democracy to express their discontent to their government. If you lose the right of protest to your government, peaceful protest, then what is the essence of democracy? That is the question that has to be answered, and it will be answered by the court of law. But right now, we are talking to the court of the public opinion. This is a question I want all Nigerians to ponder. Do you think it is right for your government to arrest you, to subdue you so violently, and subject you to a whole week of imprisonment without trial, just because you came out and you told your government, "I am not happy with a particular policy, can you please change it?" The protest was not directed against the judiciary to begin with. The judiciary does not initiate prosecutions. The protest was directed against the executive decision of the federal government to prosecute Nnamdi Kanu. Prosecuting someone is different from trying that person. Subjecting you to trial is the duty, and it's within the province of the courts. But to trigger that trial, the executive branch takes a step, and that step is called prosecution. So we were out there to tell President Tinubu, not Justice James Omotosho or the Nigerian Federal High Court. No, we were there to tell President Tinubu, the man you have before the courts under trial did nothing wrong. And the manner by which or in which he was brought into the country does not give you the right to subject him to trial. That is all. Pure and simple. That what he was doing, or the enterprise for which you are traducing him and prosecuting him, is an enterprise that is protected under Nigerian law and international law. That enterprise is called self-determination. It's a view, it's a political opinion that may be inconvenient to the government, and that is why the mischief rule in every national law protected it as a political right. If the mischief rule, or people who founded nations didn't think it was wise, they wouldn't have put it there, that you had the right to self-determination. But when a government, your government, in response to that right, seeks to suppress your expression of that right by means of punishment of some sort, that becomes egregious. It becomes a challenge to the entire society to ask whether such is the correct government response in a democracy.
Some people also wonder, as defense counsel for Nnamdi Kanu, why did you embark on the protest?
Defense counsel to Nnamdi Kanu has not lost his right as a Nigerian. I know the rules of the bar, the rules of subjudice, and so on and so forth. I wasn't in the protest to tell the court on how to make rulings, or how to render judgments, or to express opinion on how the court is conducting the proceedings. I was in the protest to express my views to the government of my country that your prosecutorial policy as deployed and levied against my fellow citizen, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, is wrong. Stop it and halt it. It's my right to do so, despite the fact that I'm a defense counsel. Some of the most far-reaching reforms we enjoy today in terms of our civic rights, we are pioneered through protests led by lawyers like late Gani Fawemi and others who are still living a life, like people like Femi Falana. Being a lawyer and even participating in a case does not rob you of having an opinion over that case, a opinion you can express publicly without breaching the zone of surgeries that the court would not want you to go. I was careful to walk that thin line. And I was in my proper zone. I didn't breach anything.
And then one is also tempted to ask, going to public protest, does it imply by any stretch of imagination that you've lost confidence in judiciary?
No.
In the judicial process?
No. I'm an officer in the Temple of Justice. If I tell you I have lost confidence in the judiciary, then I might as well hang my wig and gown and go to the village and maybe begin to farm. Okay? Or begin to go somewhere and become a philosopher and even lose interest in the entire society. No. I have confidence in the judiciary. I won 3 victories from Nnamdi Kanu. One before the Abia State High Court, one before the Federal High Court in Umuahia, and one before the Enugu State High Court. It is the same judiciary. They have given me a fair shake. I have confidence in the Federal High Court. They've given me a victory. So that underscores my confidence. But it does not mean that I'm naive. It does not mean that I will be blind to the political ill winds that are pervading the case of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. There is this palpable political content in it that is far beyond the capacity of judiciary to resolve. And that is why judiciary has been grappling with that case since 2015, going on to 10 years. It's a very tough nut to crack for the judiciary, but very easy nut to crack for the executive branch. It's all politics. So my taking it to the public square to Nigerians was to, awaken the consciousness of Nigerians to see the politics in the case and to lay the blame for the lingering, for this case lingering for so much, lay the blame where it should be laid. The buck stops at the president's table. If President Tinubu directs the Attorney General to exercise the powers of his office under Section 174 of Nigerian Constitution to discontinue this case, it will be over. Pure and simple. That was my goal.
Maybe some people might need to ask, why is Nnamdi Kanu still being held if from several reports there is this argument that he has no case to answer, he has not done nothing wrong? Why is he still being held? And is there any window of chance for him to be freed?
This case is grounded upon the proscription of IPOB and tagging it a terrorist group. So Nnamdi Kanu got caught up as the leader of IPOB. Do you understand? That's one of the charges. As a matter of fact, 2 other charges were grounded on the basis of his leadership of a proscribed organization. So when I took the case to the Enugu State High Court in 2023, the Enugu State High Court ruled that the manner of proscribing IPOB violated Section 42 of Nigerian Constitution. That is the section of the Nigerian Constitution under Chapter 4 of the Constitution that prohibited discrimination against any Nigerian on the basis of ethnicity. The court mentioned expressly that the proscription of IPOB was a directed executive discrimination against the Igbo ethnic group. And sometime in October 2022, the United Nations Special Rapporteurs, an organ of the United Nations that oversees human rights violations in foreign countries, had also reached the same conclusion. It wasn't by conjecture. They mentioned the Igbo ethnic group. They are the forerunners of what I'm about to say. And what I'm about to say is this. Let it sink in. Nnamdi Kanu is being travailed because he's Igbo. Pure and simple. If he wasn't Igbo, this case would have been over 8 years ago. I'm not the first one that said it. A judicial body has said it. Enugu State High Court has said it indirectly. United Nations Special Rapporteurs has said it indirectly and directly to some extent because they mentioned Nnamdi Kanu by name. So let us stop beating around the bush. And this is the reason that really helped galvanize me. As an Igbo man, I shouldn't have a trembling knee. I'm not an Igbo man with a trembling knee. So when you step on the rights of an upstanding Igbo man and it gets my attention, I'll fight for him. If I don't do it in the courts, I do it on the streets. And I fight peaceably, but I'll fight strongly and vigorously. Because it's one for all for one. If I let that one sit up, if I sit it out, one day it may be my turn. I also fight for other Nigerians, but it gotta be Igbo first before I become a Nigerian. So I cannot be in denial that all is well with Igbo man in Nigeria. And Nnamdi Kanu is the poster boy for that.
How soon are we expecting freedom for him? Any hope?
It lies with President Tinubu. I hope someday, somewhere, a journalist will ask him that question. But I'll tell you what, when I see statements issuing from the villa, not in particular from Tinubu himself, from President Tinubu himself, but from his underlings, that this matter should be resolved by the courts, it gets me thinking, is someone somewhere contriving some predetermined result from the courts? What is informing this blind confidence about the matter of Nnamdi Kanu should be resolved by the courts? It begins to sound to me like someone who stole your election, and before you open your mouth, INEC tells you go to court. Like a mantra. You know, it's suspicious. Why wasn't Igboho's case resolved in the courts? Why wasn't the chairman of Miet Allah's case resolved by the courts? Why wasn't Shore's case resolved by the courts? So when they begin to insist that the matter of Nnamdi Kanu should be resolved by the courts, it takes me back to 1963, when they were also saying the same thing about the case of Obafemi Awolowo and Anthony Inahoro charged with treasonable felony. And they were facing a trial in which they had the option of taking summary trial or the other, but they pushed them into summary trial and convicted them with a bat of an eyelid. It was a political trial. They were also saying it should be resolved by the courts. So his conviction was contrived. We learned later from Justice Show that his hands were tied. So it makes you suspicious when the executive branch that is prosecuting you leaves no room for discussion other than telling you it should be resolved by the courts. Otherwise, why do we have that provision in Nigerian Constitution that the Attorney General can discontinue a criminal prosecution? Why is it difficult to apply that to an Igbo man when that very provision had been applied to non-Igbos in recent times, including by the present administration?
All right, let's move on. The issue of Nnamdi Kanu, we had sacking all his lawyers or firing all his lawyers, and including very senior advocate of Nigeria, Kanu Agabi, and other counsels from defending him. What are the implications and what is left for him?
Well, using the word firing is not, I would say debriefing and disengaging. It's a strategic move by him. He's a well-educated man, and he has his mind intact. He's fully aware of what he's doing. That's all I can say to that.
Why do you think the Southeast governors are not championing the cause of Nnamdi Kanu's release?
It's for them to answer, and it's quite shameful that is the conclusion that has been drawn. since last year, when they declared in July last year that they were going to interface with the president on the issue of Nnamdi Kanu. Nothing has been done. So they just have to explain to Igbo why they have not taken any step visible, seen. I hear a lot of things that some of them have taken some covert steps, but I didn't see that. But I don't have any reason to doubt them. But I think what needs to be done and what needs to be convincing is something you do in the open. If Southeast governors empanel themselves or convene themselves one day and say, this weekend we are going to Villa to discuss with President Tinubu on the question of this issue of Nnamdi Kanu, I think, Igbo will be very proud of them. That hasn't happened. And to me, it's not something that to be proud of.
Looking at the strategic moves you talked about right now, what is the current status of his defense?
Nnamdi Kanu believes that he has no case to answer, that there are no charges facing him. Listen, let me tell you a story. You know, you're not lawyers, but you know that once a law is repealed, it's repealed. Can you believe that the Terrorism Prevention and Amendment Act 2013 was repealed in July 2022? Nnamdi Kanu is still being charged under that old law, which was replaced in July 2022 by Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022. We're in 2025, and you're still trying him on an old law. Let's not talk about extraordinary rendition, because somebody might say, oh, the Supreme Court said, okay, he was rendition, but he's still subject to trial. But there are other issues dancing around that. What about the root fair hearing that was not given to him in Kenya? If Nnamdi Kanu was offered the due process of extradition in Kenya, he may not be here today, because there are a lot of defenses to extradition within the extradition laws of any nation, including Kenya. So there are just so many issues, and he was discharged in October 2023. Okay? Now, this case took like a year and a half to get reinstated. And while that was going on, in fact, even at the Court of Appeal, the law was repealed. So what is he facing before the Nigerian judiciary now? Charges based on old law. It's for the courts to decide. But these are one of the defenses in chief or cases in chief that are emanating from him, that are a challenge to his prosecution or his trial.
The judge handling the case has said he should consult very experienced lawyers to explain to him the implication of standing trial for himself, or I don't know that, or what it implies. So what is your own advice on this matter as it is now? Representing himself or going to seek for more serious advice?
He has legal consultants.
So what is he likely to do now?
Nnamdi Kanu will not be the first person to defend himself in a criminal trial. I can give you several examples. Martin Luther King did it in America. At some point, Gandhi, the father of non-violent resistance, did it in South Africa before he escaped to India. I think Mandela tried to defend himself too at some point. And in 1963, we go back to Awolowo again. Awolowo defended himself. He was assisted by some lawyers, including one from England, who was denied entry into Nigeria, but eventually he was granted entry. So Awolowo defended himself. So a lot of defendants, people who were subjected to criminal trial, have defended themselves in history. Nnamdi Kanu will not be the first. But that does not obviate the fact that he does not need the advice of experts. If he feels he does on any question of law, I think he's wise enough, smart enough to go for it.
Let's revisit the issue of IPOB.
Yeah.
Based on your submission about the Enugu High Court, talking about that it was unjustly, the process of proscribing IPOB was not right.
Was unconstitutional.
Was unconstitutional.
Yes.
So are you likely at any point in time to challenge this particular issue, or is it part of what you are going to drag into the case at any point in time?
Well, the prosecution of IPOB is before the Supreme Court right now on appeal. And Nnamdi Kanu is being charged based on the prosecution of IPOB. There's also a question amongst legal experts. Is it right, under jurisprudence, to subject a man to trial on a law that has not become final? What criminalized the IPOB activity and put Nnamdi Kanu in detention is the notion, the court order, that IPOB is a terrorist group. The court order proscribing IPOB. That court order, a lot of Nigerians don't know, is still under appeal. Section 36 sub 12 of Nigerian Constitution says no Nigerian should be put on trial except on the basis of a written law. Let us assume that the prosecution of IPOB has become a written law. It hasn't become a final written law. It's still lying before the Supreme Court. These are some of the issues that I believe the executive branch should have looked at and say to themselves, well, what's the hurry? Maybe we should let this man go, because even the proscription upon which we are prosecuting him is not even final. It's not yet final. So these are the issues, the legal issues dogging his proscription. And these things are very likely to also occur as legal arguments in court.
What do you think may be the fears of the federal government if they should allow Nnamdi Kanu to go?
The fear of the Igbo man. The primordial fear of the Igbo man that led to the pogrom, that led to the widespread lie, deadly lie of Igbo coup in 1966, and then that led to the genocide that gave the cover for the 3-year genocidal war. And even after the war, that primordial fear of the Igbo man still persists. We just have to tell ourselves the truth. The truth. I'm asking my fellow Nigerians who are not Igbos, what is it about the Igbo man that you fear so much? That when we are even in power, when you are even holding the levers of the presidency, you still fear the Igbo man enough, sufficiently enough to put him in chains, to try to put him in jail and lock him away and throw away the key. Do you believe that to be the solution to your fears? Or do you take the other part, the other part of brotherhood and compatriot spirit, and embrace the Igbo man with all his good, the bad, and ugly, just as a human being that he is? We possess good qualities and bad qualities, all of us. Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, Nupe, whatever, white, black. So this singling out of an Igbo man in Nigeria as a separate entity to be treated in a certain discriminatory way. I've cited court rulings in that regard, including the one by the United Nations. So I'm not inventing anything. That thing has to go, or Nigeria will continue to have certain problems that it shouldn't have.
What is the current state of his health? Because we know at the point...
of course he's not feeling well.
Judiciary set up a panel, and the panel said that they gave him a clean bill of health.
Well, that one, the jury is still out on that. There is a question as to whether the Nigerian Medical Association is the right body to certify him as being fit for trial or not. It's a legal question. And I think it's going to become judicial very soon, sooner than later. There's also a question as to whether they actually examined him after 26 September, when the judge made the order. Nigerian Medical Association never examined Nnamdi Kanu, to my knowledge. I was managing his health as a lawyer, writing letters, staying with him, being present when he was with doctors. After 26 September, Nigerian Medical Association never examined Nnamdi Kanu physically. They had an interaction with him sometime around 22nd or 23rd September on the invitation of the Attorney General of the Federation. That's a different ball game altogether. Different from when the court invites you by an order to examine the patient or the defendant, and you didn't. And you relied on some previous interaction that lacked any modicum of physical medical examination. So that again, the jury is still out on that, and it's going to be attended to in good time.
If another free Nnamdi Kanu protest is called today, will you make yourself available?
I'll be the first to step forward. I lead from the front.
There are those who feel that the insurgency in the southeast was a creation or the making of Nnamdi Kanu. What's your take on that?
Well, a lot of both state and non-state actors latched on to that. Nnamdi Kanu couldn't have been in detention and begin an insurgency or insecurity. When you put a man in detention, he becomes powerless. So, but nature abhors a vacuum. I do believe, and I acknowledge the reality, that state and non-state actors stepped in and contrived this insecurity to rubbish Igbo land, to make Igbo land unsafe, to blame us for misfortunes they brought to us. Do you understand? You beat a child, you don't want him to cry. He cries, you beat him again. So, it's so wrong. But if everybody believes that Nnamdi Kanu's prolonged detention is directly related to the insecurity in the southeast, why is the government not letting him go just to test the waters? Everybody is saying so. So you release him and see whether the insecurity continues. In that way, you separate the apples from the oranges.
Do you think that releasing him can guarantee peace in the southeast or end the insurgency in the southeast?
He's an upstanding citizen of the southeast, and he has legions of followers in the millions. I think his voice will count. Even my small self, and you, Victor, if you rise today in a podium in Enugu and Oka and say, my people, please stop killing one another, stop kidnapping. Those criminals amongst you, please stop. Maybe one person will listen to you. I think thousands will listen to Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, just like they will listen to others. But as it is now, what voice in Igbo land do you think is stronger than he is? He has a very strong voice. He has a way of, making things happen. He's a man of charisma and great influence. Like one of South leaders was saying that all South leaders need to come to the table to talk about how to advance Southeast and end insecurity. Why would that discussion exclude Mazen Nnamdi Kanu? The fish rots from the head. And if you want to kill a hydra, you chop the head off. That's what they are trying to do to us. But God forbid, it won't happen.
There are those who have also dismissed the insinuation that releasing him will guarantee peace or return peace to the southeast.
Okay, is that the reason now to hold him forever? That shouldn't be the reason to hold him forever. What about for his own sake? For the sake of justice. He deserves justice. Just for himself. We shouldn't be using him as a bait or as a pawn in the chessboard of the insecurity in Southeast. It's not fair. Okay, we can answer the question and say, yes, the two are correlated, but it stops there. The next question is, what about the justice of the case? Prosecuting Nnamdi Kanu is unjust in the first place. Renditioning him is unjust in the first place. Addressing those things are personal to him. And they can also extrapolate to become personal to you and I. Because if we allow government to rendition someone and subject him to trial for touting self-determination, it might be Nnamdi Kanu today, tomorrow it might be Victor, myself, Aloy, or another individual. Okay? So the justice of the case demands that Mazen Nnamdi Kanu regains his freedom without further let or hindrance.
Southeast leaders, business leaders, political leaders, do you think they are better placed to lead the change in the Southeast as against the direction or the way Nnamdi Kanu's followers are going?
Well, I think we need a holistic approach. The civil society in Southeast includes IPOB. They have followers, they are in the millions. Okay? The Chinese will tell you that Christians will talk about the kingdom of heaven and the last feast. That feast probably will be prepared by the Chinese because they cook pretty well. So even though that they are heathens and atheists, they will be there at the kingdom, cooking at the kitchen and partaking in the final feast. So IPOB numbers in the millions of members and followers and sympathizers. So for any discussion of how to move Southeast forward, I think there has to be a consideration that they be brought to the table. And how best can you bring him to the table than bringing their leader, Nnamdi Kanu, to the table?
Maybe can we look at this direction, given his strong voice? Why has he not, in alliance with or together with IPOB, called on his followers or called on the killings in the Southeast to stop publicly, given his strong voice in the Southeast?
Well, I'm surprised it's coming from you. I saw a video posted on your YouTube where he made that call from the inside of the courtroom, even twice. You may have forgotten, Victor. He did it. He said, in 2 minutes, if I come out in 2 minutes, who is there to disobey? I call on everybody, the insecurity, the criminality, whatever. This is not what fighting for Biafra, fighting for freedom is all about. Do you recall? He said so from the courtroom. Maybe not the way you framed it, but he had taken every opportunity given to him since his detention to rail against the insecurity, to rail against criminality in Southeast, and to call for peace and end to any form of violence. I give him that credit.
As somebody from the Southeast, how do you feel on this sit at home every Monday?
The sit at home, I think, maybe has become something of a voluntary enterprise. There was some violence at some point, okay? Misguided violence. But right now, anybody that is sitting at home on Monday in the Southeast probably is doing so voluntarily out of love for Nnamdi Kanu. And remember, I had taken a proactive step in ending incessant sit at home. I don't know if you recall. Okay? So I had taken an active step in trying to end the sit at home, being incessant or whatever. But the Monday own seems to have persisted on its own. So what can anybody do about it?
What's the status of your case now with the Nigerian police? Have you been left off the hook?
No. We're going to court on 15 December to start trial. I can't wait to see them in court to defend myself and the others. You mean the arrest, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Nobody is discontinuing anything. So they scheduled us to come to court on 15 December. Okay? And we're going to go to court in Kuje. Maybe first of all, we'll find out what we are doing in Kuje anyway, and why we're not in Wuse, where we were arrested. There are several magistrate courts in the area of the arrest. So what the heck are we doing in the Kuje? That may have to be the first.
At least from a layman's point of view, the jurisdiction was within this area, not Kuje.
You got it. You're not even a lawyer, but you figured out that something funny. That something funny has to be solved first. If we are convinced we are supposed to be in Kuje, fine, we'll be in Kuje and take the trial. If we're not convinced, by God, let it go to where it's supposed to be.
As a starting point.
Yes.
All right, let's look at the state of the nation. How will you describe the current state of the nation right now?
I'm not a politician, but I live in this country, and it was President Jonathan that brought me back to Nigeria from the United States to assist in privatization. I was a member of the legal committee of the National Council on Privatization when Jonathan was president. And dollar was selling at 1 to 150. Now dollar is selling at 1 to 1,500. Do you expect me to be happy? and to tell you that the nation is doing well. No, it's not doing well. That is the truth. This is just talking about one aspect, which is monetary policy. Okay? One aspect, which is monetary policy. When I came into Nigeria during Jonathan administration, I came in with approximately $100,000 in cash. I had other assets, okay? But at least I had that cash to cushion myself. And guess how much I got out of it? As at that time in Naira. And I was happy. You do the math. That's monetary policy that is not good for any nation. I don't know whether the blame should be laid on Tinubu alone, because I think things began to unravel once Jonathan was out of power and Buhari came in. So Buhari laid the ground rules. He laid the foundation for the economic doldrums that we find ourselves in now. So I do believe that perhaps the present administration is struggling to roll back on some disadvantages that were in the system when they came in. But whether their effort is sufficient or not is left to conclusion of anybody who goes to the market to buy one or two things. One of the indicators of a strong economy is stable prices. But we don't have stable prices here. Prices are skyrocketing. And, a lot of things have become too expensive that the common man cannot reach them. And there's a lot of hunger in the land. So I do believe more needs to be done by the current administration to strengthen the economic indicators towards a positive direction, so that the common man will get to benefit from, the economic policies of the government beyond mere statistics.
Are you worried or have concerns about the direction of the country right now?
Yes, of course I'm worried. There's less unity in the country, and it seems to be self-inflicted. I think our politicians have to be conscious, very, very conscious, of pulling all the parts of Nigeria together. Because when you engage in policy that tends to alienate one part, especially an important part, then you are putting the nation in danger of a disintegration and discontent. And people will begin to want out. People will begin to want their own nation. And then you are going to double back and begin to punish them, arrest them, prosecute them, and all that. And you think that is the solution? No, that's not the solution. The solution is good governance, justice, peace, fair play, tranquility. Treat your neighbor as you treat yourself. Hausa, treat Igbo as you treat fellow Hausa. Yoruba, treat Hausa as you treat fellow Yoruba. Minorities, treat yourselves, treat the majority as you treat your minorities. When people begin to treat one another better, then we'll have a better nation. And the goal that we pursue as citizens, as compatriots, will become very achievable. But when you don't do that, you are inviting disintegration. And don't blame anybody that agitates to have a separate state, because his reasons will be more justified than you think.
Maybe go a little bit back. You talked about President Jonathan invited you back to the country.
Yes.
What do you think about those willing him to contest for 2027? And then you have also some person saying he's not qualified to run again for president.
In Jonathan?
Yes.
Well, it is the decision to make. As to constitutional qualification you're talking about,
Yeah.
well, this is something that the courts will have to decide. Maybe they can test that in the courts. But he never got his 8 years. I can give you my legal opinion. Jonathan ruled for about 5 or 6 years.
6.
He can be re-elected. But someone can argue that his presidency will pretermit at the, before he makes another 4 years. Do you understand? It's an argument that can be made, but he's qualified to run again.
What do you make of the future of the Southeast as we head to 2027?
Well, the Southeast will continue to struggle politically. Unfortunately, we are politically disadvantaged in this country since the end of the war. militarily speaking, even when the military is in power, there is a political disadvantage for Southeast because we are not well represented in the military security apparatus. And then when democracy comes, there seems to be some kind of a conspiracy of sorts or a convergence, amongst other groups of Nigerians that Southeast, people should be marginalized politically. So a lot of good positions elude us, in the national affairs of the country. We don't have that predominant or dominant presence that we are supposed to have in this country, and that is one of the things that is causing convulsions in the system.
What do you make of insinuation or the narrative that the Free Nnamdi Kanu protest was probably a strategic plan to draw out P2B and frame him for being a pro-IPOB member and probably destroy his presidential ambition?
Well, the allegation that it's a strategic plan is more strategic than the strategic plan. Anybody taking it towards P2B angle is being devilishly strategic. It has nothing to do with P2B. P2B has publicly called for a halt to the prosecution of Nnamdi Kanu. So why do they keep looking for him? So those are the people that are being devilishly strategic. The buck stops at President Tinubu's table. If he does not free Nnamdi Kanu, he can forget the votes of people of Southeast. Nnamdi Kanu is well loved in the Southeast. Mr. President, if anybody is telling you differently, he's lying to you. Unless there's another plan. You're not going to win Southeast without freeing Nnamdi Kanu.
Even with all these defections?
No, it won't happen. APC will lose woefully.
With all these defections?
Yes, go to the grassroots. I'm very close to the grassroots. The Igbos are waiting. They are angry. Nnamdi Kanu is their favorite son. They want him home. Mr. President, or you can forget Southeast. You can become president again with the votes of others. But forget that of Southeast. They are not happy with you because of this Nnamdi Kanu matter. That's just the gospel truth.
I have proposed a number of states, I think 6 states coming up, and every zone is allotted 1 state again. And Southeast, they said they want to correct imbalance. The Southeast was also given 1 state, but other zones are also going to get 1 state. What's your take on that?
No, they create imbalance by trying to solve imbalance. That is speaking from both sides of their mouth. But what are they creating more states for anyway? States that won't be viable. They're only viable in terms of electing more representatives, more senators to put pressure on the national powers, and the governor to put pressure on the state resources. If they want to truly correct imbalance, Northwest is 7 states. They can make the other geopolitical zones 7 in number. That will correct the imbalance. Let us say creating more states is not a good idea, economically speaking. But if you're creating more states to solve an imbalance, you create 7 states in each region, each geopolitical zone, because Northwest has 7. Others have 6, Southeast has 5. So we say, well, it's a bad idea anyway, but there's a silver lining to it. The silver lining is that the states were created to balance out geopolitical zones. Let us just say, is either a balance of power or balance of terror? Whichever one you take, that's what it is. But at least by all means, let the geopolitical zones be equal. That's the only thing good I see about this new creation. But if they do it, and one region, one geopolitical zone is more than the others, and Southeast begins to lag behind again, then it is duplicitous. It's dubious. It's a dishonest exercise. And I'm not going to have it. Thank you.
What are the chances of President Tinubu come 2027?
Of course, an incumbent president always has better chances than those challenging him. Of course, Jonathan is an exception, and you know why he was an exception. He had a gathering of very big populations conspiring against him. So Tinubu better watch out. If Southeast walks away from Tinubu and a chunk of the North walks out, was away as well. He's not going to make second time. So for him to have a lock on second time, he better does business with Southeast. We are not going to be political fools in 2027. And I'm going to be saying it. So if he has Southeast in his kitty, and how does he get Southeast? By implementing policies that will make Southeasterners happy. Pure and simple. We love justice. That's the only way you can appease an Igbo man. You give him justice, he's happy with you. If you make Southeast happy, he will have Southeast in his corner, plus his Southwest, and then maybe one big geopolitical zone in the north central, and a chunk of Northeast, and he gets a second time. But if he alienates the Southeast, well, let us see what happens. His chances will be as good as Jonathan's chances against Buhari when Jonathan lost.
And what's your last word to Nigerians?
What can I say except to tell Nigerians not to lose faith in themselves? Don't let anybody make you lose faith in yourself, whether you're Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, Nupe, Gware, whatever. Your individualism is all you got left. Your individualism. You have the right to pursue happiness and success and progress for yourself and for your immediate families. Do very well for yourself in any situation that you find yourself. And don't let the ills of the nation break your spirit. In particular, the youth. Maybe the Japan syndrome needs to be looked at again. By all means, if you get a visa, travel. But the idea of trekking through the Sahara Desert or going through dangers of meandering through many nations without papers, I think should go. It's putting a great number of our youths at risk, and the nation is bleeding from it. If you have a valid visa to travel, to study, to work, by all means go. But for now, if you don't have, and you're stuck here like I'm stuck, you make the best of yourself. I try to make best of the situation. The advice I've given you is the advice I have given to myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to Aloy Ejimakor, Defense Counsel, Special Counsel to Nnamdi Kanu. He's also a legal mind, currently based here at the nation's capital. Thanks for being on Naija Unfiltered.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
It's a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thanks.